If you're in your 20s and you feel like you're behind when it comes to money, then trust me, you are not alone. In school, we're taught about Pythagoras' theorem and Venn diagram, but no one actually teaches us what to do with money. And as someone who started her property journey at the age of 24 and had 100k invested at the age of 25, I've learned that when it comes to building wealth, it's about what you do with the money that you have now, and you need to have a strategy. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the finance basics on what I wish more girlies knew in their 20s. So if you've been here before, you know the drill. Grab a pen, grab a paper, get comfortable. Okay, so let's start with the first thing. There is a difference between spending, saving and investing, and just because you're a great saver does not mean that you are building wealth, and I'm going to explain why. There is a concept known as inflation, and inflation is something that every single person has experienced and has attributed to the cost of living crisis. The fact that milk costs a lot more now than it did 5 years ago. Inflation is the price at which things increase over a period of time. Now, the reason why I said that you can't save your way to wealth is because inflation is also acting on your money. So let's say we had a hypothetical pot of £10,000, and let's say we put it into a savings account, and the savings account gave us 1% interest every year. Remember that we have inflation acting on the price of goods. Let's say inflation in this hypothetical situation is 3%. So you're gaining 1% in interest every year, but inflation for that year is 3%. So you have a balance of 2%. So that means your money is losing value by 2% every year. Now you're probably thinking, if you can't save your way to wealth, what is the point saving? And that is a really good question. Saving is important because we just don't know what is going to happen. Life happens, and it's really important that you have at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved somewhere. So if, God forbid, anything bad happens, at least you have a financial buffer that you can use to stay on your feet whilst you figure things out. And you always want to try and put your money in a high interest savings account because you're trying to beat inflation. The second concept is budgeting, and this links nicely to my first concept, because in order for you to be able to save money or invest money, you need to have come up with a budget. And a budget, simply put, is knowing what you want to do with your money. It's knowing how much you want to save, how much you want to invest, and how much you're giving yourself to spend. And budgeting doesn't have to be unattractive, it doesn't have to be unsexy, even though most times it can be, because you might have to confine how much you spend in a season of your life in order to be able to invest more or save more, depending on what the end goal is. And your budget needs to work in alignment with your end goal. So if you have an end goal of having a house deposit in 2 years, then your budget is an avenue that allows you to get to that goal, which is why every person's budget is unique to them and their financial circumstances and their financial goal. I have created a video on how you can create your own budget sheet, or if you like a budget planner that I use, then I've put a link in the description box. The next concept is compound interest. Compound interest is the game changer when it comes to investing, and it's why loads of people will say the earlier you invest, the more you get to benefit from compound interest. And compound interest is basically when you earn interest from the money that you've invested, but you're also earning interest on the interest you've already earned. So practically, if you think of a snowball rolling down a hill, it starts with small, and as it goes down the hill, it begins to gain momentum and the snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That is a visual representation of compound interest. With compound interest, the longer you leave your money there, the bigger and bigger it grows, because you're earning money on what you started off with, but you're also earning on the interest, and then you're earning more on the interest and more on the interest, and it goes on and on and on. So let's say you invest £1,000 today at an interest rate of 10%. In year one, you earn 10% interest, which is £100. So at the end of year one, you have £1,100. Then the next year, instead of earning 10% on the original £1,000, you're earning 10% on £1,100. And at the end of that year, you'll have £110 in interest. So your £1,100 grows to £1,210. And just like that, it's a snowball effect. effect. To reiterate that it's not how much you put in, but how long you put it in for, I'm going to use two people as an example. We'll start off with character A. Character A started investing at the age of 25, and they were investing £200 every month without fail, and their plan was to do this up until the age of 65. And in this instance, we're going to say that the average return was 8%. By the time individual A gets to the age of 65, they will have roughly £1 million. Now let's compare them to person B, who started investing at the age of 35. They were also investing £200 a month regularly up until the age of 65, and again the average return was 8%. However, at the age of 65, this individual will end up with roughly £500,000, which is half of what person A will have at the age of 65. Now we can see that both of them were investing the same amount each month. However, the time that they were investing for difference, there is a difference of 10 years. The second person lost 10 years of compound interest, and we can see here that the impact of that is significant. So the earlier you start your investing journey, the better it is, because you allow compounding to work for you. The next thing that I would tell the girlies is that your 9-to-5 job is your foundation, but you need to look at increasing your income streams. The more income streams that you have, the more you're able to protect yourself against risk, such as if you happen to lose your 9-to-5 job. And it also means you have more disposable money available for you to invest, which in turn will help you build wealth at a faster rate. So you're probably wondering, well, how can I build my income stream? The first thing I would say is, I wouldn't advise building loads of different income streams at once. If anything, I think it's good to do one thing really well, make it stable, make it predictable, and then moving on to another thing. You'd rather have 2 or 3 really good, reliable, consistent, scalable income streams than having 7 which are very inconsistent. If you're really good at something and people are willing to pay for your services, that could be a source of income stream, but you have to be mindful that you're not trading your time for money. You want to be able to scale it so that even when you're not there, or you're not available, or you're asleep, that thing is still trickling money in. You could think about freelancing or creating digital product or investing in an asset that doesn't need you to run it. And the last thing that I'll say is, make sure you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Debt has a bad rep, and people tell you don't get into debt, but like I said, there's 2 types of debt. Good debt is when you use money borrowed to invest in something that will make you more money. A really common example of this is mortgages. Mortgages are money that are borrowed from the bank, and investors typically will use it to purchase a house which they rent out. And they benefit from 2 things. They benefit from the value of that house increasing over time due to supply and demand, and they also benefit from renting out that property over a period of time. And if they have picked a house in a good location where rental markets are increasing, then again the value of the rent over time will also increase in line with everything else increasing. Bad debt is when you use money borrowed for things that don't make you money. So it could be using money for a holiday, or using money to buy designer items that depreciate, so in other words lose value, rather than increase in value. And I personally had a rule, and I still have that rule now. If I can't afford to pay for something outright, then I'm not going to get into debt trying to have it. And so if I can't pay for items or clothing or my holidays outright, I'm just not going to do it. But I'm more open to using leverage or using borrowed money to invest in assets, to invest in businesses, or to invest in things like property, because I know that those things will make me money in the long run, and they will increase in value. And it actually reminds me of a quote that I read in a book, that if you have to think about whether or not you can afford something, then chances are you probably can't afford it. And this leads nicely to lifestyle creep. A lot of people end up in debt trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to have a flashy car or a really nice house that they can't necessarily afford in that season of their life, or they want to buy designer items to try to impress other people, rather than using that money or using those resources to invest in assets that can later give them the expensive holiday, or let them buy the expensive designer item, or get them that expensive car. So guys, make sure you are mindful of what you're using your money for and what kind of category of debt you're in. And that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful. Let me know if there's any concepts that you want me to create more videos on, or if there's anything that you think I missed out that you would love to know in this Finance 101 series, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.